Unexpected and unprecedented. Cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries recording statements over an alleged assassination plot against Deputy President William Ruto. A confirmation that Jubilee is divided, perhaps beyond redemption. A divided party, a divided cabinet, and now a divided presidency. The top stories. Tonight, 4 CSs questioned over alleged plot against DP Ruto.
At no time have we ever met anywhere, not just in Lamanda or anywhere else, to plan to kill the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
DP accused of embarrassing his boss, ruling party split, cabinet divided. Plus, your 9-year-old is sitting for national exam in September.
Just cover the syllabus. Pole pole. Don't waste time. What are you revising?
A first for Kenya, but the rules are unchanged. And a year after the incident, there is a verdict. Prison warder found guilty of causing death by dangerous driving. Also tonight, Kirinyaga health workers are still on strike. Medics dismissed in Laikipia.
A number of medical officers were on Friday served with their dismissal letters.
Symptoms of an afflicted county health sector.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari.
Good evening and many thanks for joining us in this news broadcast. Our sign language presenter tonight is Flora Atieno. Deputy President William Ruto may have kicked off a new storm after he alleged a plot to assassinate him. 4 cabinet secretaries, a number of principal secretaries and chief administrative secretaries from the Mount Kenya region said to be at the center of this scheme today answered summons to appear at the DCI to respond to these claims. The senior government officials, however, rubbished the allegations and accused the deputy president of an attempt to embarrass them. They say they will take appropriate action once investigations into the alleged plot are complete. NTV's Seth Olale was at the DCI headquarters and pieces together the latest manifestation of the cracks within the architecture of power.
Cabinet Secretary for Trade Peter Munya, his ICT counterpart Joe Musheru, CS for Health Cecily Kariuki, and her transport counterpart James Masharia, flanked by other senior government officials, mostly drawn from the Mount Kenya region, were questioned about an alleged plot to assassinate Deputy President William Ruto.
But they have confirmed to us that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya made a call and complained.
It is alleged that the senior government officials, mostly drawn from Mount Kenya and the Central Kenya region, held a meeting on 14th May at Lamada Hotel. Top on the agenda, it is alleged, was to put together the details of the Deputy President's assassination.
There is freedom of association and the freedom of expression. People are allowed to meet as long as they are not meeting to plan any criminal activities.
The Deputy President allegedly told the DCI that the plot was part of a wider scheme to lock him out of the 2022 Kenyatta succession.
I think it's irresponsible, unfair, and it intended to portray us in a very bad light so that we look like criminals who meet to plot criminal activities against him. And it's also intended to injure our reputation.
The leaders say the meetings addressed concerns about development in the region, but the allegations seem to relate to an unverified letter dated the 30th May 2019 and circulated on social media, purporting to have been written by a cabinet secretary whose name was redacted. The letter, titled Matters of Grave Concern, contains details of a meeting held on a Tuesday this year, supposedly attended by CSS Peter Munya, Cecily Kariuki, James Masharia and Joseph Musheru, with the agenda listed as to show up support for the president in Mount Kenya, a proposed referendum, and going on an offensive against the DP. Interestingly, the CSs named in letter, whose authenticity has not yet been verified, are the very ones summoned by the DCI. The said meeting was held on the 14th of May, a Tuesday, and a date that also appears on the letter. The CSs, however, did not record any statements since the Deputy President has not filed a formal complaint. Investigations over the assassination plot are being undertaken by the Serious Crimes Unit as well as the Cyber Crimes Unit under the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Detectives will question all persons of interest before submitting a detailed report to the Director of Criminal Investigations, George Kinoti. Seth Olale, NTV at the DCI headquarters, Kiambu Road.
The divisions in the Jubilee Party are now nearing crisis levels, with his latest twist in the President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto souring relations. The appearance at the DCI of 3 cabinet secretaries over an alleged plot to assassinate the DP indicates that the rift could be growing wider and faster, but the bigger battle may be about the Kenyatta succession. And as NTV's Brenda Wanga reports, the centre can no longer hold.
To do proper investigation, there are machineries to do that before making unsubstantiated and wild allegations of that nature. I think it's irresponsible.
Those allegations that have landed the 3 cabinet secretaries of the DCI, just the latest manifestations of the widening rift in the Jubilee Party-led government, and analysts say whether authentic or not, this move could be a game changer.
But as we begin to see, it's getting ugly.
The last fortnight has seen an escalation of the tiff between supporters of the president and those of his deputy, who have gone into what is seen as an open defiance to the president's call to cease 2022 campaigns, so much that it forced the president to dress down leaders from his backyard.
Na matiko ndogamia barabara ria ndithondekeire iria ndirenda gukinya na kuria ndirenda gutwara andu aitu na kuria ndirenda kumakinyia.
While the deputy president has steered clear of openly pushing the succession agenda, his brigade hasn't shied away from the same, and they have not been taking any prisoners, cabinet secretaries and the Jubilee Party included.
Cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries who have neglected their duties, and they are now concentrating on how to handle succession politics.
But in the presence of the president, the DP has been towing the now seemingly divided party line.
Kiongozi wa taifa letu la Kenya. Hawa watu wa hapa Wazingishu hawana kiongozi mwingine. Kiongozi ni wewe. Na tuko nyuma yako. Mbele na nyuma. Kulia na kushoto. Juu na chini. Milima na mabonde. Sisi tuko nyuma yako hapo.
On paper, that may be so, but analysts believe that the reverse is also true.
The game has reached a point where it is open. It is open, and I think there's no more pretext. I think people will now be saying the gloves are off.
The situation in the Jubilee House, further exacerbated by the handshake between the president and the opposition figure Raila Odinga, a handshake that Ruto's team believes is designed to shut him out of the race to the House on the Hill.
It's important for the president and indeed then the handshake duo to come clean. Let's know what the handshake is all about. If it is about 2020, let's be told.
Failure to address the underlying factors informing the continued crumbling of the party could be putting the president's planned legacy into jeopardy, especially since the feud has now found its way into the decision-making unit of the very government, the cabinet.
How will these cabinet secretaries sit in cabinet with their colleagues? How are they going to work together? Because there's need for synergy within cabinet, and there are meetings, some chaired by Super Minister Matiang'i, others chaired by the president in terms of the weekly cabinet meetings. How are these people going to work together?
The authenticity of the said letter is yet to be verified. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
The war within the ruling Jubilee Party is real, and Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho is right at the center of it. He has been accused of funding the so-called Keleweke team, the Jubilee faction opposed to Deputy President William Ruto. He was born in 1967. The former educator and scientist has been accused of spinning backroom deals to undermine certain politicians. His experience at the Foreign Affairs Ministry and International Trade has earned him his current position as the Principal Secretary of Interior and Coordination of the National Government. Historically considered one of the most powerful, his predecessors have not been known to retreat without a fight and often found themselves engaged in politics where friends turn into enemies. Political analysts are saying that the position Kibicho holds has a lot of influence and power and is believed to attract only those close to a sitting president and his tightly knit circle. Kibicho has previously been accused by Nairobi governor of conspiring to portray the Nairobi county as tribal. His relationship with Deputy President William Ruto has been described as cold by analysts, as others accuse him of maintaining a tight grip on the administration in the counties. Well, question of the day. The ruling party is now clearly divided, and so is the cabinet following today's statement from CS Peter Munya. What do you think the president should do to ensure the differences do not affect government functions? I want to repeat that question. What do you think the president should do to ensure the differences do not affect government functions? You can tweet us at NTV Kenya, Facebook as well at NTV Kenya, and our SMS line is 20686. I'll sample some of your views and your comments at the tail end of this news broadcast. Let's move on now to matters of education from politics. And grade 3 learners countrywide will start this year sit a national assessment test before graduating to grade 4. They will be assessed between the 16th and the 20th of September, with the results expected sometime in October. NTV's education reporter Sharon Baranga reports.
For the first time, learners in grade 3 studying under the new competency-based curriculum will have to sit an assessment test before graduating to grade 4. The exams will be overseen by the Kenya National Examinations Council. Already, a registration platform, assessment tools and guidelines have been put in place in readiness for the Kenya Early Years Assessment. Their identification and enrollment will take place between the 1st July and 30th of August.
And we are in the process of identifying and enrolling grade 3 learners so that we get the number, and we are going to work together with the curriculum support officers who will be able to see that it is done at the right time and marked, and then all what we need ourselves is to get the grades to allow us analyze and see where the challenges are and give feedback.
But we've been doing it in sample schools. We would want now to spread out this to be done in all our schools.
But the grade 3 learners are not the only ones preparing for the national examinations. 1,088,986 candidates are registered to sit this year's KCPE exam, and another 699,745 students will sit their KCSE exam. In the next 3 months, candidates who register to sit for the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education exams will begin writing their papers. The government has introduced a few measures aimed at sealing off loopholes that could lead to examination malpractice.
We had a school which had an open book exam, where eight subjects were done in an open book fashion. Where were the NEC people there? Where were the government people there? And you can be very sure that envelopes exchanged hands. Just cover the syllabus. Pole pole. Don't waste time. What are you revising? Because there's this notion that we have finished the syllabus in February. Hiyo ndio ujinga ya mwisho.
The number of containers to be used in the storage of examination materials has been increased from last year's 459 to 479 to shorten the distances for distribution and seal possible loopholes for leakage. The government will also map out the trouble spots, including structures and buildings within and around schools that will be put under surveillance before and during exams. Pupils in their final year of primary education will also not be allowed to change their Form 1 selection choices after sitting their KCPE exams. The Ministry of Education will open an online portal to allow candidates revise their Form 1 choices before the test in October. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
As Harambee Stars battled and fell to the Desert Foxes of Algeria in Cairo, Uriri High School in Migori was in a battle to put out the flames of a fire allegedly started after students claimed they had been denied a chance to watch the football match. The students were forced to spend the night out in the cold following the incident. Parents claim the fire was as a result of an escalation of indiscipline cases and conflict between the students and the teachers. They accuse the school's administration of corruption in the admission of students into the school. The school administration did not comment on the incident. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has warned that stern action will be taken against teachers who fail to clamp down on such incidents in their schools.
Ambayo inaweza beba hata watoto over 300 imechomeka, na sasa hii hatuna habari kamili. Ni kama walimu wanajua chenye inatendeka na wanatuficha kama wazazi.
It's failed to understand what's happening both to the administration and to the students themselves. Because wangechukua action, watuambie wazazi kati hii na hii ndio ilifanyika, ama suspect ni huyu ama ni huyu, and so we have not had anything as per that.
Being a manager has a price. So I've said this from the bottom. It is not enough to be reporting that, oh, this house has got burned. If it is in your jurisdiction, it means you have failed. Because as a regional commander, how frequent do you move around? Bailey has said we have enough people to be going to every school every 14 days. Could there be that? And you can be sure the schools I went to, I asked, Miliona hapa mtu siku gani? Unasikia? And I will keep on doing that. It's not because I expect you to be everywhere, but I want you to get out of go out. If we are going to be defeated, we should be defeated in the field. Are we together? That's what I'm pleading with you to do. I'm saying this value because they are here. Most of them have done very well. But for me, even one building being burnt when we don't have enough money to construct others is as painful as you can consider.
From the courts, a prison warder at the center of a hit-and-run incident last year has been found guilty of causing the death of 22-year-old Maureen Wamboi Gachagua. Sgt Dismas Gitenge Motongwa, a warder at the Nairobi West Prison, ran over the Kenyatta University student along Mombasa Road and drove for 3 kilometers with the body stuck atop the vehicle, dumped it before fleeing the scene. Anita Nkonge has more.
Trying to hide his face from the glare of the cameras in vain, as the magistrate delivered a verdict in a case that dragged him into that very limelight, Sgt Dismas Gitenge Motongwa has been on trial for the murder of 22-year-old Maureen Wamboi Gachagua, a student at the Kenyatta University. He, in July 2018, ran her over outside the Next Gen Mall along Mombasa Road, drove off with her body still stuck on the car, then dumped her in South Sea. He was today found guilty of causing death by dangerous driving and giving false information to a person employed in the public sector. Dismas had then reported the case at the Langata police station where he claimed to have hit an animal. His number plate was later found on Maureen's body that he had dumped after fleeing the scene. Trial Magistrate Elector Rainey said Dismas had been driving dangerously and was speeding on that fateful morning. She also pointed out that he had lied in his defense. The late Maureen, who was pregnant, was crossing the road outside Next Gen Mall at 4 a.m. in July of last year after a night out with her boyfriend when she was hit by the sergeant's car. He will be sentenced next Monday. Anita Nkonge, NTV.
Over 60 health workers in Laikipia County have been dismissed from work for taking part in a strike that has paralyzed health services in the county for the last 3 weeks. Laikipia Governor Nderitu Mureithi says the medics have been on an illegal strike and had absconded duty. This is just the latest manifestation of the festering troubles facing the provision of health services in the county, as NTV's Eunice Omolo reports.
The empty beds and the eerily deserted public hospitals in Laikipia County perhaps epitomize the trouble afflicting the country's public health sector. Patients have been left to their fate after health workers staged a work boycott to demand better terms of service. It's been a month now. In reaction, the county government of Laikipia announced it had dismissed the 61 doctors who have been on what the county government says was an illegal strike.
A number of medical officers were on Friday served with their dismissal letters.
The county will be advertising for the vacancies of the medical officers, but in the meantime, patients will be served by the 24 medical managers in the county, who include the health executive and the chief officer, who will be deployed to the 2 major hospitals in the county. The doctors' union has, however, protested the dismissal.
Strongly told his officers not to sign the return to work formula which came up. So we actually looking at a situation whereby we have an arrogant person who does not care on what is happening.
The doctors went on strike on the June 3rd, protesting the failure by the county government to implement their collective bargaining agreement and effect promotions. It is the same ill afflicting health services in Kirinyaga County that have ground to a halt. The workers accuse the Kirinyaga County government of taking a tone-deaf approach to their grievances, which include a failure to provide a conducive environment for work. The county government employed 60 health workers on a 2-month contract after doctors, nurses, clinical officers, and lab technologists went on strike 24 days ago.
Our members could not work in a hospital that has jeopardized lives of their colleagues before and can jeopardize their lives now. So we had to walk out, and we have submitted that affidavit in the court, and it has been accepted. We will be waiting for the hearing on the 4th.
The industrial strike followed the revelations of the sickly state of the Kerugoya County Hospital that was temporarily closed by the inspectors from the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Board. Doctors in various counties have accused the county governments of going back on the collective bargaining agreements negotiated in 2017. Solidarity. But in Kisumu, patients may get much-needed reprieve after doctors call off the strike after giving a 7-day strike notice last week. This comes after their counterparts in Kisii also resumed duty after a 2-week strike. Eunice Omolo, NTV.
Well, 20 minutes past the hour, time for our first short break. But coming up, we share the findings of an autopsy report on an inmate who died in prison in Naivasha. Stay with us, more stories coming next.
It's time for the total.
Dennis Okari.
Welcome back. The results of a post-mortem examination of the body of an inmate who died while serving a life sentence at the Naivasha maximum security prison shows that he was beaten to death. The pathologist who conducted the autopsy report on the body of Simon Nduro Gitau said he had injuries on his back inflicted by a blunt weapon. Mary Beffin reports.
The family of 36-year-old Simon Nduro Gitahi had been waiting for the results of an autopsy that would confirm their worst fears. Their kin, who had been serving a life sentence at the Naivasha maximum security prison and who had died under curious circumstances, had been beaten to death. Government pathologist Titus Ngulungu, who performed the autopsy, said Simon had injuries to his back inflicted by a blunt object. This, he says, was the main cause of death, disputing an earlier account by the prison management that the inmate had suffered an asthma attack. The autopsy report further shows that his lungs and liver had collapsed due to complications brought about by the injuries.
So we are headed to the prison to do our interview with the in charge of the prison. So as of now, as KMCHR, we have not concluded our investigations. So we'll request that once our investigations are complete, we'll be able to share with you our report.
It is a finding that offers little consolation to a family that has been on a desperate search for the truth.
Kenye kimefanywa nimeshukuru sana. Daktari hakutoa mapendeleo. Amesema ya kwamba mtoto ni kupigwa alipigwa.
The family claims the prison has not been forthcoming with information about Simon's death. Inmates who passed on information to his father claimed he was descended upon by 8 guards and beaten for allegedly not queuing properly for a meal. He was then reportedly taken to an isolation cell where he died. The prison, however, disputes these accounts of events. His father, David Gitahi Nduro, said they will be seeking redress in court even as they prepare to lay him to rest at a public cemetery in Naivasha. Mary Beffin, NTV.
Chief Justice David Maraga will now appoint a 3-judge bench to hear and determine the case challenging the 250,000 shilling monthly house allowance paid to members of parliament. This is after parties in the case agreed that issues raised in the case were weighty and needed to be addressed by a panel of judges. NTV's Zainab Ismail reports.
The battle between the Salaries and Remuneration Commission and legislators over the 250,000 shillings house allowance that MPs awarded themselves is far from over. 2 cases seeking to stop the Parliamentary Service Commission from paying MPs the allowance have been referred to the Chief Justice to constitute a bench for hearing. One case was filed by activist Okiom Tata and another by SRC. They both want the courts to stop the payment of the 250,000 shillings in-house allowance and the court to order the legislators to return the money they were paid. Justice Weldon Korir also extended orders barring the Parliamentary Service Commission from paying MPs the allowance.
In the circumstances, I direct the Deputy Registrar to forward this matter to the Honourable Chief Justice for appointment of a panel of judges to hear the same.
SRC has stood its ground, saying the scheme would result in the loss of public funds in excess of 99.5 million shillings every month.
Order number 13.
And in an apparent bid to flex its muscle, Parliament made good its threat to cut the budget allocated to SRC by slashing 104.6 million from the Commission's travel, entertainment, hiring and new offices fund. The matter will be up for mention on the 1st of July. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Talks to unlock the stalemate over the Division of Revenue Bill flopped for a second time as governors warned of unspecified actions if there is no agreement by Thursday. A second meeting chaired by Deputy President William Ruto bringing together governors and Parliament's leadership failed to agree on the way. NTV's political affairs reporter Kennedy Mureithi reports that the parties will be hoping to try again to reach an agreement on Wednesday.
The divisions over how much money should go to the counties continue to deepen. Another meeting between governors and Parliament's leadership, chaired by Deputy President William Ruto, ended with both sides as far apart as ever.
We want this issue resolved by Thursday this week so that we are able to pass our budgets in the various county assemblies.
Though details of what actually transpired in this second meeting remain scanty, going by the statement sent by the Deputy President's press team, the governors were seemingly unhappy with the way discussions on the matter are being handled. Governors were also this time round quick to clarify that the meeting was not an intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council meeting, but just an informal one.
This is a matter of urgent national importance, and that is why we are taking time between the Council of Governors, the National Treasury, and the two houses to try and hammer out an agreement.
The Council of Governors insists on a sum of 335 billion shillings, a figure supported by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. The Senate is stuck to its figure of 327 billion shillings as the shareable revenue, while the National Assembly leadership present explained why the figure should be maintained at 316 billion shillings. Treasury holds that the cumulative total of 371 billion shillings, including grants forwarded to counties, with 310 billion shillings as the shareable revenue, is what's on offer.
All arms of government are called upon to provide the necessary support.
We have given a chance to the national government, and we have agreed that they continue discussing on this issue.
Another meeting between the House leadership and the Deputy President, and that hopes to unlock the stalemate, has been called for Wednesday. Sources indicate the National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale expressed concern that if another bill were to be published without an agreement, it would paint a bad picture. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV.
The new road clearance rules announced by the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai late last month were today put to the test after a motorcade believed to be that of Chief Justice David Maraga was caught driving on the wrong side of the road. In a video posted on social media by activist Boniface Mwangi, the CJ's three-car convoy is seen driving on the wrong side of Langata Road towards oncoming traffic before moving to an adjacent lane, still on the wrong side after Mwangi refused to give way. While the Chief Justice was included in the recent list of VIPs entitled to special clearance on the road, only ambulances and fire engines attending to emergencies are allowed to drive on the wrong side of the road.
Obey the law. I'm not going to move.
The tribunal investigating suspended Supreme Court Judge Justice Jackton Ojwang began its fact-finding mission in Migori County in the ongoing investigation touching on the conduct of the suspended judge. The tribunal has heard in camera the testimony of one of the witnesses after the suspended judge requested for a private hearing. A key part of the truth-finding mission is a road cutting into Kakrao Center to Rayudi village in Suna East constituency, where his rural home is situated. The judge is said to have a close association with the Migori governor, where he was rewarded for issuing a favorable ruling in the Sony Sugar Belt case. Well, it's time for another break, but coming up, we have KPA, who's laying claim.
It is time to get down to business. Welcome, I am Julian Amboko, and let's start on the logistics front. The number of containers lying at the Inland Container Depot in Embakasi, Nairobi is expected to rise to alarming levels if other government agencies fail to clear cargo at the facility within the stipulated time. The Kenya Ports Authority, which is now transporting 10 to 12 trays of container from Mombasa to Nairobi per day, is giving the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Kenya Bureau of Standards and other state corporations a task of expediting the evacuation of cargo from the facility so as to meet President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive. Kevin Mutai with the details.
With the state-of-the-art installations at the port of Mombasa, efficiency in terms of delivering cargo is currently at its best. But the delay in clearing the imports at the Inland Container Depot in Nairobi is now the key challenge that importers are facing. This is as a result of the implementation of the government's executive order to remove some of the state agencies at the ports of entry after traders complained of being subjected to long processes in clearing their goods as well as incurring extra shipping charges.
Any cargo coming with a certificate of conformity from the port of origin must be respected by the Kenya Bureau of Standards or the other agencies that operate at the port of Mombasa and ICD. That means that certificate is enough to give you a seamless movement of your cargo even through the Inland Container Depot. And this is a presidential decree.
Every day, 10 to 12 trains, each carrying 108 containers, are released from the port, translating to almost 1,000 containers ferried to Nairobi.
And last year, we ended up the year with 1.3 million TEUs. By this year, we must end up with 1.6 million TEUs going by the trains.
And with the new terminal almost complete, the numbers are expected to go high, with KPA aiming to becoming a transshipment hub that will make Mombasa a world-class port in the region. Land reclamation through dredging is at 50%, and construction of Phase 2 is expected to begin before the installation of new equipments.
We have got 3 berths at Lamu, which will be running by the end of this year. These 3 berths will transform the entire landscape of shipping through this region, all the way to southern region.
The delays experienced at the ICD, however, could slow down KPA's momentum, and President Uhuru Kenyatta has already issued a directive to have the ICD cargo cleared quickly. Following that directive, more than 500 containers have left the ICD. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
And now let's talk about matters debt. Foreign exchange reserves held by the Central Bank of Kenya now stand at $9.1 billion, posting a decline of $930 million from the week that ended on the 14th of June 2019. This decline comes on the back of the maturity of the $750 million 5-year tranche of the Eurobond issued in June 2014. On May 15th this year, Kenya raised an additional $2.1 billion through a Eurobond, whose proceeds were to be partly used in retiring payments related to the 2014 Eurobond, whose date of maturity was today, that is June 24th. This decline in foreign exchange reserves has seen the country's months of import cover decline from a high of 6.4 to 5.8, which still stands above the 4 months statutory requirement. And now top company managers of tax-evading companies may soon be barred from flying out of the country if the Kenya Revenue Authority gets the new powers as proposed in the Finance Bill of 2019. The taxman is eyeing chief executive officers and top managers of companies whose controlling members are not Kenyan residents who have been evading remitting tax over the years to recover its revenue. Treasury CS Henry Rotich is proposing amendments to Section 45 of the Tax Procedures Act of 2015 to include tax representatives of an organization, effectively expanding the list of company officials against who KRA can issue departure prohibition orders until the outstanding tax is paid in full or arrangements are made for the payment of the same. And for more details on this story, grab your copy of the Business Daily tomorrow. The Kenya Commercial Bank and the National Bank of Kenya have jointly set up a project team comprised of staff from both entities to mitigate transitional risks and make the necessary preparations for the looming takeover of NBK by KCB. The transition team will be led by KCB's Group Chief Executive Joshua Oigara. The successful completion of the transaction is subject to receipt of pending regulatory approvals from the Capital Markets Authority, the Competition Authority of Kenya, and the Central Bank of Kenya. In the interim, the two organizations will continue to run as separate entities. KCB has received regulatory approval from CMA to serve NBK with the offer document and has served NBK with the same. A response is expected within 14 days, with the entire process expected to be completed by September this year. And elsewhere, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa COMESA Secretariat is considering introducing an economic analysis tool which will prioritize food and safety, animal and plant health, and in turn increase the market access for agricultural produce. The failure to harmonize sanitary and phytosanitary, that is SPS rules, also known as animal and plant health measures, has posed as a challenge across the region, cutting out COMESA countries from accessing more lucrative markets in the international scene. COMESA says the tool will reduce trade barriers, especially in the movement of food and agricultural products across the region. Almost 70% of the reported non-tariff barriers in the region are as a result of technical standards and SPS measures.
COMESA is working like other acts to make sure that we are facilitating the goods, the service within our region by putting in place a required facilitation instrument and programs.
Efforts that are needed should seek to identify high growth potential sectors, isolate challenges both at regulatory and market levels, and build the capacities of SMEs and regulations to provide quality and safe products.
And away from trade, let's talk about insurance. Now, PTA Reinsurance Company, also known as APRI, has slashed its dividends payout to shareholders by half to 250 million shillings after it recorded a 57% drop in the profit for the year ended December 31st, 2018 to 1 billion shillings. The drop in the reinsurer's earnings is attributed to reduced margins and increased cost of operations due to the pricing pressures in the insurance sector.
You've been reading the papers, most of the insurance companies make losses, and this is really driven by price undercutting and fraud, if you think about motor. And the industry, together with the regulator, are working on trying to curb these malpractices. There's a lot to learn in the region and cooperation, and APRI is at the forefront of that. This year we are thinking of writing up, we are planning to write 200 million. Last year was about $180 million with a profit of $10 million. So as we're going to be declaring a dividends. The shareholders will decide on that. And we are looking forward to more, maybe capitalizing their dividends to grow the company.
And up next, we have the financial report. And that's it from the business desk, but coming up. Rwanda receives a critical package from Europe. We tell you what's in that after the break.
When the spirit of Kenya
search for Ezra Chiloba's replacement at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission will take a little longer after the Employment and Labour Relations Court extended orders stopping the interviews of 10 shortlisted candidates until a case filed by Chama Cha Mawakili is heard and determined. The lawyers' lobby claims the ongoing process is not open, transparent or competitive and goes against the Commission's human resource recruitment policies. The interviews were meant to start today and conclude on Wednesday. Acting CEO Marjan Hussein is among the shortlisted candidates lined up to replace Chiloba. The position of Chief Executive Officer is at the key of the electoral body, as the successful candidate will run the Commission's Secretariat, which plays a crucial role in the management of elections. In other news making headlines around Africa, Ethiopia's northern Amhara State Security Chief Asaminye Etsige, suspected of being behind a coup bid in the region and who has been linked with the assassination of the army chief, has been shot dead. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's office had named him the chief suspect in an attempted coup in Amhara that left the region's president top advisor.
world of sport. I'm Ida Warenga, and the national team received a courtesy visit from retired Honorable Raila Odinga following their 2-0 loss to Algeria in their opening match of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. Raila was accompanied by Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed, PS Karimi Kaberia, and Kenyan Ambassador to Egypt, Geoff Otieno. The delegate offered encouragement as the Harambee Stars seek to overturn that loss in the group. To the feeling back home, and let's sample a few views from Kenyans on the national team's performance.
Kwanza ilikuwa ni furaha kwetu kuona Harambee Stars baada ya miaka 15 kuingia katika mashindano hii ya Afrika. Lakini kitu cha kwanza ambacho ningesema ni kwamba wengi wa wachezaji wa Harambee Stars sijui ni kuogopa majina makubwa kama Mares hapo jana, kwa sababu ukijaribu kuangalia vile walikuwa wanacheza kwa namna moja ni uoga ulikuwa mwingi juu. Unaona mchezaji amepata mpira badala ya kupeana pasi vizuri anapiga tu vyovyote vile.
I don't think it sounded well with Kenyans because we never expected that kind of result. They could have performed better, bearing in mind this was their first game. So at least a draw.
All the best to the Harambee Stars in their next game against Tanzania. Sticking on matters, African Cup of Nations and Ivory Coast got their Nations Cup off to a positive start with a narrow but deserved 1-0 win over South Africa in their Group D match. More from Day 4 of the Nations Cup.
AFCON 2019 in association with GoTV.
Jonathan Kodjia scored the only goal of the game as Ivory Coast edged past South Africa in their opening group.
right, looking forward for more great games going forward with AFCON. That's it. That's all we have for you tonight. My name is Dennis Okari. Sign language presenter tonight has been Flora Atieno. Mark Masai is coming up next with Press Pass. Stay with us.